Hey everyone, Paul Wilson here for another live stream. For those that were expecting it earlier, I apologize that we couldn't do it until noon today, Eastern Standard Time. Is it Standard Time? Daily? Eastern Time. And the reason being, of course, is that um, I'm still a working e-learning designer developer, and of course, I have clients who have needs, and of course, um, they come first. So looks like I've already got a few people joined here. We'll say hello to everybody up front. Today I'm doing something a little bit different than the usual live stream. There'll be probably less interaction with the chat. My goal today is to share with you the project that I was showing people how to build at the Adobe Learning Summit. So let me go straight into sharing my screen, and we'll start off by doing a preview of this project here. So just bear with me a moment here, and I will show you this project. You won't hear the audio. You might hear the audio through my speakers here, but this is what we're going to be building today. This is the process of what we're going to be building today. And before we actually get into construction of it, I'm going to cover off a few things as well, some high-level introductory stuff as well. But I figured we'd start with the project so you can see exactly what's going to happen here. So I'm going to go ahead and preview this in HTML5, and we'll see what's going on here. So there's my browser, and let's go ahead and take a look at this project. Okay, so a nice little intro slide, a little background music. We've got a character who's going to appear prominently throughout this course. Let's go ahead and press begin.
Josie and Dave have been preparing for a presentation with management. She stops by Dave's desk on her way out of the office to ensure he's ready for tomorrow. Dave asks if she could stay late and help him with some extra slides for the presentation. How should she respond?
Okay, so we've set up a scenario that Josie and Dave have been working together, and at the last minute, Dave is asking her to deviate from the plans there. So how should she respond? This could have been a multiple choice question where we choose an answer, and using advanced actions, we could have set up different navigation choices. I chose to just create my own buttons here, and let's choose one of the maybe less effective answers here. I don't want to say there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. There's a better answer and a not so good answer. So let's choose the second option here.
Josie and Dave give their presentation. Management felt that the presentation lacked a clear direction, as if the two of them had not worked together as a team. Josie realized that had she spent a few more minutes working with Dave, they could have had a more united presentation.
Okay, and of course, because we're in the safety of e-learning, we're going to give you another chance to help Josie make a better decision here. So let's hit retry, and we'll choose a better answer here. And I think this is the best answer here.
When Josie asked Dave why the extra information was relevant, Dave was able to illustrate that it would address concerns management might have about the proposal. They worked together for another 30 minutes and got the presentation done.
And we'll hit continue to continue.
Josie and Dave gave their presentation, and management approved their project. Congratulations to Josie and Dave for a job well done, and specifically to Josie for providing outstanding service to her colleague Dave. We often think of our customers as the ones who buy our products and services, but we must remember that we also provide service to our colleagues. If we all treat each other like customers, we go a long way toward providing exceptional service for the general public and our teammates. Providing this kind of service makes our organization a great workplace where we treat everyone with respect and help each other with the common goal of providing excellent service for everyone.
And of course, the final button is an exit button, which will close the browser and return you to your learning management system. So the idea behind this was a sample project. This is not a real project that I used for a client. The idea here is, though, I wanted to illustrate to all of you, specifically those attending today, but also those who attended the Adobe Learning Summit and my session that I did there. I wanted to illustrate that Adobe Captivate, out of the box, without the need for any external content or anything like that, with one exception. I did use a text-to-speech technology that's not included with Adobe Captivate, but you could just as easily use text-to-speech that's built into Captivate, or your own voice to record the narration, because I specifically created only one voice, a narrator, who was speaking throughout. I could have had both Josie and Dave portrayed by other voice actors and so on, but I didn't do that in this case here. So what I want to share with you is a little bit of the background here. So I've just switched to my webcam so I can find the appropriate presentation that I shared with the learners, in Las Vegas. And of course, I'll be returning to Las Vegas real soon. Let's just go ahead and share my session with you guys there. We'll just give that a second here. And the hard part about being the hard part about being both a broadcaster and a producer. I guess I'm doing my own producing, really. Let's just get out of here. End slideshow here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to share the actual presentation there a little bit differently. So let's just hide that bar there, and I will go ahead and share my desktop here. So these are typical quiz questions. In fact, when I got started doing e-learning for my last employer, long before I went freelance, we decided to go, with pretty standard e-learning. It was basically level 1 e-learning. Level 1 e-learning is, the minimum level of interaction. So here's a typical quiz question. This just checks for knowledge. The feedback is very basic. And I started to explore the idea of doing something a little bit more. So what we did is we started to tell a little bit of a story. So we converted to a scenario, and this is sort of the start. In the previous example, we just simply said, who can help passengers ensure that they have the correct outbound boarding pass? In this case now, we tell a little bit of a story. Robert from Calgary has just got back from his trip to Los Angeles. He needs to line up in the connection line with the CBSA area, but he isn't sure what the correct outbound boarding pass that he needs to use. Who's there to help him with this? So we tell a little bit of a story here. And this creates a basic scenario. It still just checks for knowledge, and it still is just basic feedback. Then I started to do training that would flesh out the story a little bit more, because not only would I have the story of Robert from Calgary, we put an image of the airport behind him. We put Robert there looking confused. And the choices are the same, but now the scenario is a little bit more relatable because you're seeing a person, a human being, directly in front of you. Feedback is still basic here. And then we started getting into, and I say we, but I was really the only e-learning designer developer. And this looks a little bit crazy, but keep in mind all these feedback captions, I blew them out like this, but basically they would have all shown up in the correct area there. So now the scenario is a little bit more fleshed out. Choices are the same, but the scenario is more relatable. Feedback is unique for each choice, and the learner gets to see the consequence of those selections. So really starting to create true storytelling, true scenario-based training. And you could even take it to another level and have each of those options take your learner down different paths. So if they choose one thing, they see a different subsequent slide. If they choose the correct path, again, a different subsequent slide, but again, they see that this is a better choice, depending on the situation. So where do you get your scenarios? How do you build these scenarios? How do you come up with them? You can make them up, of course. That's my last bullet point there. But I encourage you to ask your subject matter experts that you're working with. Tell them about, ask them for common mistakes that your learners make. What are the consequences of those mistakes? What is the best course of action to avoid mistakes? So you can build that scenario based on what you want the learner to get out of it. Use stories from the news or other similar companies. So I did one course for an insurance company, and one of their competitors had, quite a scary situation in the news where one of their former employees came back and was brandishing a weapon and trying to go after management. And this was a course on workplace violence and how to avoid it. So obviously, I used that story. And in the end, they didn't use it because they were afraid that obviously some of the people working for them may have also worked for this other company, and they didn't want to offend anyone or upset anyone. So, obviously we went with a more generic story. Regardless, if it is based on a real life situation, make sure you change the names and, of course, some of the story to protect the privacy of individuals who might have been involved. If you are going to make it up, though, at least make it plausible. So maybe still ask your subject matter expert for examples and then come up with a scenario that's similar to those situations that you've been shared. And of course, that leads to what is the disadvantage of taking this approach towards your e-learning. Obviously, scenario based training takes more time to design and develop. You're going to be using up a lot of time writing these stories, writing these scenarios, figuring out the alternate paths. It does require you as a designer to do more research. And I do recommend that you use some type of tool to map out all the paths of your scenarios. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. The advantages, though, of course, learners will see how it relates to them. It'll remind them of their own experiences, and it will make training more relatable. They'll have more meaning. I don't know how many times I've sat in a classroom, even in my formal education years, wondering what this has to do with real life. Why am I going to learn this? Or just asking, or just questioning the validity of training or education. I'm never going to use this in real life. Well, if you're given scenario-based training, you can see how it applies to your real life, and it makes it a lot more relatable to your everyday job. And obviously, this leads to the aspect of gamifying learning. So, people who want to win at this scenario, people who want to be successful when they go through this training, it's kind of like a video game in a lot of ways. So, they will get to choose outcomes. They want to be successful. They don't want to be a loser. They want to be a winner. And that will definitely help with engagement and gamifying your training. And like I said, everything you need to build scenarios is built right into Adobe Captivate. So you can get away with a lot of things that you don't need to spend extra money on. Everything you need is right there. How do you structure your scenarios? I always go with this 3-step choice. So what is the situation? What are the choices available to that character? So I start off a little bit of information about what the situation is. Robert just flew back from Los Angeles and he's going to be moving back to Calgary. So right now he's in Toronto. And so this is the problem. And I present the choices that are available. And of course, you as the learner choose those choices for Robert, help him make the right decision. And the end result is that you either help him make a good decision or you see the consequences of a bad decision there. And of course, I like to build in the retry into all these. E-learning is supposed to be a safe environment. People are, there to learn, but, obviously in the real world, if you make decisions, they're final, you'll see the consequences of those actions. Here within the e-learning world, you can safely give them an opportunity to make mistakes and then try again so that they don't make those mistakes as well. Multimedia assets, of course, stock.adobecom is a great source for images. A lot of people avoid those sites. If I go to stock.adobecom, I'm going to quickly show you a little tip here. So if I look for an image of people in an office, if I don't have a monthly plan, there's some great images here. But of course, I'm required to purchase those. And you can do it either as an annual subscription or a monthly subscription. But either way, it's going to cost you some money. Here's my tip. Take a look right here in the upper left-hand corner where I searched for people in the office. Let's select that and then choose free. Adobe has millions of images that are available for you to select and free and download and use in your e-learning. This is completely free for you to use. So if you wanted to use this image, I could click on this and I can license for free. And then I'll get an opportunity to download that. There's some really cool features where you can remove the background, you can resize images, but you can just download it straight away and then open that up in Photoshop and use it without really having to worry about royalties or copyright infringement or anything like that. So that's a great choice as well. Obviously, Adobe Captivate has the assets library built right in. And make sure you have access to that. There are some issues sometimes where people are behind firewalls and stuff like that. But in addition, like you've got maybe, a couple dozen characters that you could choose from here. But don't forget the Discover tab where I can click on Discover and I can go find characters like the ones I used for Josie and Dave here. And as you can see, there are literally hundreds of images to choose from, all different styles and designs. Some of them are cartoon characters, some of them are photographic images, and so on. So, really great resource for you to take advantage of. If you go to your downloads folder, if I go to characters here, you can see for a project I'm working on that requires more of an industrial look and feel, I've been downloading various characters, and of course I can use those in my training there as well. And I'll show you a little bit about that as well. Back to the PowerPoint here. Record your own narration, so again, Captivate has the ability to, the big red record button here at the top in your toolbar. You can set up a good quality microphone. Currently, I'm using this Shure microphone here. A couple $100, but I think you'll agree that the quality of this microphone is quite good, and you'll get a good result there. But you also have other options as well. The voices that I recorded in this e-learning course came from Well Said. Full disclosure, I do some work for them, so I do have access to them as a benefit of being an influencer for them. But they're a great resource, but there are others out there. I don't want to say that they're the only ones. So wellsaidlabs.com if you want to check out what's available there, if you like what you hear in this sample project. So and of course, I'm going to make these sample projects available to members of my YouTube channel. If you're a free downloads member, you'll not only get access to this video like everybody else, but you'll have access to the resources that I use to build this particular project. Certainly anyone can follow along in the video and use their own resources to build something similar, but I'll give access to those resources to my subscribers as well, or to my members as well. So back to the PowerPoint for a second here. I also like to use, and you'll see this today, I use different effects and motion paths to add motion and animation where it's applicable here. One of the other things too, if you want further information, and I'll put this link in the description of the video once it's a recorded session. One of the biggest influences on me when I was first building scenario-based training was Kathy Moore. She's a real expert on this, and she's done some amazing work. She's consulted on some amazing projects and stuff like that. She recommends an open source tool for mapping out your scenarios. mapping out the scenarios can be really beneficial, especially if you're going down different paths in your scenario-based training. So, for example, I'll just take you to an example of what I used when I was building, this particular project here. So, here's a branching diagram that I created when I wanted to keep track of the decisions. Basically, any flow charting application will help you with this. Twine is the example that Kathy has provided, but you can use I know there's an Office application from Microsoft that does flow charting, and there are many, of course, open source and relatively inexpensive choices as well. And don't forget about your storyboard as well. Like, a lot of people will focus on, trying to build directly in Adobe Captivate. I strongly encourage you to use whatever storyboarding tool that your organization uses. So when, in this case, this is kind of a reverse storyboard. I created this after the fact, but it was based on a portion of an e-learning course that I did before. So I put it together relatively quickly, but under normal circumstances, I would have storyboarded this out. These would probably have been sketches of what I had in mind. And once you have your storyboard, it becomes relatively easy to start building those Captivate projects. So let me open up Adobe Captivate for right now. And I'm going to close this completed project down and talk a little bit about how I would start to build such a course. So in this case here, it's a blank project. It could just as easily have been responsive design as well. But let's go ahead with the blank project here. I'm going to go ahead and choose 1024 by 627. That's sort of the default size. And create that project from there. When I'm building a new project for a new client, I'm going to work very closely with the storyboard they've provided me, but also with their branding documentation, find out what fonts they're using, what colors they're using, and things like that. And I'm going to go over to my themes section and select the blank theme because I want to start off with a minimalist approach here. And this will change all my master slides to just a very small subset of master slides. And that's fine. In fact, quite often I will make my blank theme as my default theme so that when I open new projects in Captivate, I'll be starting with just that. So first thing I'll do is I'll head over to my master slide view and I'll start to build out all of the slides that I need. So I will select Insert Content Master Slide. It creates a new blank slide. And using the storyboard as a reference, I'll take a look at what my needs are. So I first of all need a slide that looks something like this. Some content on the left, a character over here, or space for the character, and maybe this little white space here, the semi-transparent white space that allows me to create some contrast for the text with the background. So let's start that off. I've got the blank slide already, and I'm going to go to my assets store first of all, and we'll go into images, and we'll choose assets here. Select images again there and look for that background image. And it might be something you have to search for. You could type in Office blurred. I can't remember where I found this one. Yeah, that's not it. But anyway, I could also go to Discover, which will take me to Adobe Stock. Again, use the free resources available to you. We want a blurred background because that's going to help. And we want it to be of an office. So do a search for that. And once I find that, I can then add that to, to my particular project here. I might need to sign in. That could be a problem. Let's do that. And let me just get my mobile phone out, bring up the Adobe app so I can sign in, and 92. There we go. So blurred, background, office. I may have searched for something different before, but this should help me find what I'm looking for. Oh, I want to make sure I choose free. In this case, I might, because I'm live streaming at the same time, I might be better off if I just simply go to stock.adobe.com and just use my normal access here. So let's go with Office, blurred, background. It's already free. And let's see if I can, there's the one. You can see I've licensed it before, but it was free anyway. You could use this as well. I'm going to re-download this for free. And we'll just put that in my downloads folder. Go back to Captivate here. And master slide background, let's choose custom. Let's choose an image. And let's, under slide color, you can actually choose the image using the folder icon. And then we'll navigate to this spot here. Now, normally what I would do is I would not only fit to stage, but I might crop this to make sure that it's the right size for my particular project. Often I'll do that in Photoshop, but for our purposes here today, this will be fine. So now we have the image here. Let's just go best fit here. Yeah, it's huge. Let's do what I normally do. Let me go to my downloads folder and I will edit this in Photoshop for you so you can see what you would do in this case. Okay, so we have the image up. I know I'm making a project that's 1024 by 627. So I'm going to choose my crop tool and I'm going to type those numbers in here. So 1024 by 627. So we have the right aspect ratio. And then I'm going to export this to my desktop at that same size, 1024, 627, export, and we'll throw that up on my desktop there. Okay, so now it's the right size already for this particular project. Let's delete that and click on the folder icon. In fact, just to be sure I'm getting a new fresh image, I'm going to delete it from my library as well. Okay, so we'll go back to properties, folder icon, and we will import a fresh new image, and now it should be perfect. Fit to stage. Ah, it did not work. Sometimes Captivate just does not want to behave. Let's make sure, because sometimes what happens if it's in your library, let's just give this a new name. Background. Captivate, Captivate, Captivate. Let's import it again. Import. Oh, I was working off my downloads. I should have selected my desktop. There we go. That's the mistake I made. So there's that background, right? Now, I'm going to add a shape to this. And we're going to maybe change the default smart shape style because I'm going to be using this throughout this project. So I'm going to change that to white. 80% is fine, and we'll also make the stroke white, but I'm going to make it 0. So as you can see, I've changed my default smart shape style. You can recognize this because you'll see a plus icon under style name there. So I'm going to click on this little mini menu that's off to the side here and save changes to the existing style so that in the future when I create new shapes, they'll all look like this one as well. Save me some time in the future. Let's just set this up to be the right size and position. I want it to be from 0 on the x-axis. The width is going to be 512 because that's half of 1024. The top will be 0 and the height will still be the same at 627. Oops, I typed in the wrong number here. 627. There we go. Let's resize this again to be the right size. Now, the other thing you can add on your master slides are placeholder objects. So I'm going to insert placeholder objects for a title. And I can place that on the master slide roughly where I think it's going to go. You can change the shape, you can change the font, maybe in this case here, we're just going to use Arial, and we're going to go with 40 points. And what else are we going to change here? The color as well. So if again, go back to your storyboard, we can see we're using this particular navy color, and I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head, but let's just choose that for right now. In addition, I'm going to insert another placeholder object, my subtitle, which I will place, keep that more or less the same. I will change it to Arial. And we'll just resize this to be appropriate for that particular space there. So now we have, let's center these so they're all aligned with one another. When I'm doing this, I often have my alignment toolbar open so I can do quick changes like that. So there's an example of one master slide. Once you've built all the master slides for this particular project, you could exit master and then click on the themes drop-down menu and save your theme as the name of the theme, right? So you can use these slides in new projects moving forward. When I'm taking on a new client, I probably spend 4 or 5 hours building out all of the object styles, the master slides. If I'm using a table of contents, I'll customize that. And same thing with the navigation or play bar, if you will. I'll customize that as well. You know, and this is the first bit of work. So in the end, when you're done, you'll be able to go to your themes with your new project, click on Browse, and we'll just navigate to where I have these files saved. Again, members of my YouTube channel at the free downloads level or higher will have access to these files. You won't have to build them from scratch. So we'll just go to, where do I have these? I have them because this was originally a webinar. There it is there. And I called it Blue Office. So let's apply that theme and see what we have here. So this, when you apply a new theme, you're going to get this warning about object styles and properties are all going to change. That's okay, right? So here we have, again, that version of those master slides. And all I need to do now is go back to my storyboard, and the title of this course is called Customer Service. So I'm going to paste that in. And let's go back to the storyboard again. Who really is the customer anyway? That's our subtitle of this course. So we'll go back here, add that in here. And I've also created some interactive objects that have their own unique style. So I'll create a button here and I will select interactive objects and I'll add the word begin. Select use as a button. And in this case, the action would be to go to the next slide. I'll make sure that's centered on the slide as well. And, we can start building out all of the slides. Now, here's the beauty of themes. Because I've built these master slides, I can go insert, new slide from, and select, what my storyboard suggests is the next thing that I need to do. So maybe it's this slide here. And of course, I've got all the placeholder objects, and I keep adding those slides as I need them based on what's in the storyboard here. To save time today, I already have that project or that stage of the project built out here. So it's called Add Text, and this would be sort of the first completed version of the process of building your scenario-based training here. Okay, so now I have my placeholder objects, my master slides. I have all the different slides that I would need to build this project. This is all that's there. There's nothing on the timeline, no audio added. And now the job would be to, as I've shown you once already, we're just simply going to copy and paste the narration here. In this case here, the narration matches the text on screen. So we would then proceed to populate your content there. And this will save you a bunch of time. So let's do an example here. I'll paste in this text here. So Josie and Dave have been preparing for a presentation with management. That had a title as well. Let's take a peek at that. That was checking in. So Josie is checking in with Dave, right? And then of course you could, the master slide sort of has these placeholder objects. If you need more room for the text, feel free to adjust things, give yourself more room for controls at the bottom, and you can move on from there. So let's assume that we've copied and pasted all our text into our template. And that's really the way I like to think of it, but you have to watch because templates in Captivate mean something else. But in this case here, we're talking about a theme is really the correct terminology to use. So now once you've got all your text populated, and I'll just open up the project that includes all the text here so you can see what that looks like. So there's customer service, who really is the customer anyway. And we've added, of course, the checking in part. Here's the scenario. Dave is asking Josie, would she mind staying late? And, these are the different outcomes of those choices, including our final conclusion. I should point out here that on these 3 slides, or these 4 slides, I decided I didn't want the title on the slide. I just wanted the text. So if you have placeholder objects, don't worry about that. You can delete them. If you don't populate them, nothing shows up in your course anyway, even if the placeholder is still there. So at this point here, now I'm going to add, again, following my storyboard closely, I can see, okay, on slide 1, I need the begin button. So we would, again, use that shape, use as a button here. Let's go to the first slide, and we'll add our begin button. I'll do a couple of these, but give you an idea of what's involved. And again, the beauty is that I've already got it's very similar to the default smart shape style in this case, but I've called it interactive objects. I've got text background for master slides, and I did save the title smart shape style for this title object here, but you can give them your own unique names as well, as I've done here. So use as a button, and we'll make the action go to next slide. So on this slide here, in this case here, if you take a look at the storyboard, I decided to not have any navigation. What's going to happen is you're going to watch these 2 slides. They're a little bit different from one another. It's actually one slide, but the character changes appearance. And so we'll get to that in a little bit. And then we're going to move to slide number 3, where the answers, the choices for your learner will become available here. So let's minimize this, and we'll go straight to this one here, and we'll add the 3 objects here. So I like using a rounded rectangle, and we'll just approximate what that is there. I'll choose interactive object, and we'll duplicate this 3 times. Save you having to create it from scratch there. Again, having your toolbar open is real helpful, the alignment toolbar, because you can do things like distribute them vertically, make sure they're equally spaced, make sure that they're aligned or center aligned with one another. And now I simply go back to my storyboard here, and we're going to copy and paste this text. A note about copying and pasting. I actually, if you're a Windows user like me, what you can do is you can use a tool called Pure Text. So I'm hitting Control C on my keyboard, and the Pure Text tool, which is installed on my computer, you can see the icon for it here. This is a free application. You can get it in the Windows Store. I apologize, I don't know about a Mac alternative, but it allows me to strip out, this simple little application allows me to strip out all formatting that might get copied from Microsoft Office or other things. And then I use this special keyboard combination that I set up myself, Control T, to paste in pure text. So the result is I don't get any wonky formatting left over from Microsoft Office when I'm copying from there. And if you work closely with your storyboard, you know, that's something that probably will happen at some point, but this Control T really works out well. I made a decision here to make this a little bit easier to read. For single word buttons, I went with the center and middle aligned text, but I think in this case here, I want this left aligned. And I think I'll put a little bit more margin on these buttons here just to give it more space there. Now the actions for these, you're going to provide them with feedback on what these choices are by continuing the scenario. So in this case here, and this is where that the branching diagram can come in real handy. You've got to keep track of what, and actually if I took this a step further, I would have labeled these. This is slide 1, this is slide 2, this is slide 3. So this would be slide 4, 5, and 6. So you're gonna actually change the actions for these. Let's make sure they're set up to be used as buttons. I already have the rollover and down states programmed into my object style. And now, of course, I just want to make these jump to slide. Try not to hit your assets button when you're doing that. And then, of course, one by one, I just change which slide I'm going to be jumping to here. So this first one will go to slide 4. The second one will go to slide 5. And the correct answer, which is down here, will go to slide 6. Okay? Again, you would just, follow your storyboard, follow your navigation until you get to a point where all your navigation is done. And as you probably have guessed, I've got that already built. So let's open that project file. And you can see now I have all of my navigation controls here. So if we go through this, we'll see, again, this slide here was just checking in. There's just a little bit of narration. And then we go to the scenario slide where we ask the question and you have a choice to make. You can go to this slide. You can go to this slide. These are the 2 distractor feedback items. And of course, a retry button, because we're going to take you back to this slide to give you another choice if you've made the wrong choice. If you make the right choice, we're going to take you to this slide. We'll see the results of making the right choice or the better choice. And the continue button will take you on that story, continue on that journey. And then finally, we have a conclusion slide with an exit. Exit is probably the easiest action that you can write. There's just simply on success exit. In most cases, this will close your tab or your browser and return you to your learning management system. And of course, in a course like this, now we need to add our narration. Now, I've used Well Said Labs. You could simply press record. Let's go up to the first slide here. I could press record, and using my microphone, maybe the microphone that's built into my webcam, or if you have alternate microphones that you can access them from here. I'm using my Shure microphone for this webinar or this broadcast, but you probably have more than one you can choose. And then of course you probably want to calibrate the input, make sure your levels are good. And once you're good, you can press OK and then press record, and it will record out your audio here. I'm going to use the Brio here right now, and I'm just going to again, bring up my storyboard, what's supposed to be said here. I'll just pop this on my other screen, and we'll start to record. And I'm just going to say no. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to customer service, where we ask the question, who really is the customer anyway? Press begin to get started. Now, I should have calibrated. Obviously, that's too loud, but if you had some parts of the recording that you wanted to fix, maybe you burped or made a rude sound, you could actually just select that out, cut out portions of the recording that are unnecessary, like this stuff here at the end. I don't need that. You can insert silence and so on, and then save that to your slide, and that becomes the slide audio. I'm going to hit close though. I'm not going to use this audio. I've provided, again, for those who are members of my YouTube channel, you can access in the library. I have all of the slide audio pre-recorded using Well Said Labs. So these are the if you just barely made it out before, these are the audio recordings that I used here. So I'll bring my microphone a little bit closer to the speakers on my laptop, and you should be able to hear an example of this.
Welcome to customer service, where we ask the question, who really is the customer anyway? Press begin to get started.
So that's an example of what Well Said Labs does. It's really good. But the best solution, I still believe, is a human voice. So if you have an opportunity to hire a professional voice talent, you'll probably get a much better result. I've certainly done that a bunch of times, and you get a really good recording here. I'm going to open up my timeline just so you can see that. I'm going to grab slide 1 audio. I like to just drag it from my library or drag it from my computer into the timeline here. You'll get this audio import options. Unless you're distributing a single audio file over many slides, the first option is really what you want to choose here, and then just click OK. Now, I take another step. One of the complaints I've heard from other Adobe Captivate users is sometimes when your audio starts at the very first moment of a slide and goes to the very end of the slide, when you publish it out, sometimes you get crosstalk with your other slides. So I like to do this. I'll put my playhead on the ruler at the 1 second mark, and I'll press a keyboard shortcut Control P. I think it's similar on the Mac with Command P, but a Mac user might need to chime in on that. And then I roll it back to the half-second mark. What this does, again, Control P to have it pop or push to that location on the timeline. What that does is it creates a half-second pause at the beginning, or a half-second moment of silence and a half-second moment of silence at the end. Similar to if this was being narrated by an actual narrator, they wouldn't start speaking as soon as the slide came in. They would probably wait a moment for people to digest what they're looking at. And that's what I've done here. So in this case here, it creates a little bit of a pause at the end. It creates a natural pause in the speaking, but also it seems to correct that issue that some users have of getting crosstalk of different slides. So it's real easy to do this here. You go to the next slide, we just simply drag in slide number 2. If you don't want to see this message again, you can check Do Not Show Me Again, and that way you won't see it. And again, I'll just select the 1 second mark, Control P, which pushes out the duration of the slide. and then push it back to the half-second mark. And you can do that for all of the slides. I have no audio here because I sort of set up this slide with this one, and then we just keep adding all of our audio over. And you could repeat that process until you have all of your slides done. And I'm just going to go ahead and open the next sample project in this process here, which is step number 4. We're going to add our characters either from the assets store, or in my case here, I've provided you these characters already added here. For some reason, this file wants to open a new instance of Captivate. That's fine. We'll let it do its thing. And let's just bring that over. As per usual, it's got a 50-50 chance of which window to open, and it's going to show up on my other window that I'm not sharing with you there. Let's go ahead and go best fit here. So here we are with add characters. So this is literally what I did. I knew I wanted to have a character of Josie. Now, Josie's based on a real person from my life, so I will look for someone who kind of looks like Josie here in the asset store. And so I'll click on characters. Now, you may be aware that you have these characters here. There's probably about 24 characters that you can choose from. But if you've installed the Adobe Captivate eLearning assets along with the main install, you'll have access to a whole bunch more. Also, you have access to them from eLearning Brothers using the Discover tab here. So I'll hide this out. Josie is an African-American woman. Maybe that's enough. Maybe you need to be more specific. I sort of have someone in mind, like I said. And let's see if we can find the same character that I used. Her name is actually Janet in the asset library, so you can use that name to search for her later in the future here. So I chose this. It's an office, so she's going to have business attire on, and you'll have access to all the characters. So you find the character that you want to use for your, in this case, your title screen. And once you find that, maybe it's this one, I'm not sure which one it was, but you can select that, and that will give you an opportunity to download different size versions of Janet. I always sort of go with the second from the smallest. It's usually somewhere in the 1,000 pixel range, and I just download that character there. Once it's finished, you'll see a little pop-up that indicates that Janet has been downloaded, or Josie as I call her here, and we can access her from the Downloads folder at the top here, or Downloads tab, if you will. So if I go here and select character, there she is. I'm going to use a high resolution version of her. Now you might be thinking, because of how that slide looked, I might use a half version, but actually I usually just choose the full image, and I'll show you why in a second here. I'm going to go ahead and insert her. Now, sometimes there is a bug in Captivate where I would have to open up and have her pop in a second time, but it seems to be working in my favor right now. First thing I do is I go to Properties, and I go Reset to Original Size, and I get the full size image of Janet here. And, you know, that kind of meets what I have in mind. Don't worry about the fact that half her body is down here in the scrap area. I choose the full image because this way I get to decide where she gets cropped off by the slide itself. So if you choose the half image, you're kind of forced into a certain size version of the image. Here I can choose whatever I wish. Now, the other thing I usually do at this stage is add some motion paths, some animation, whatever it might be. And you can find that in your timing tab of your Properties Inspector. So in this case here, you might want to choose an entrance effect and maybe have her ease in from the left. Just creates some interesting movement and interest and so on. And of course, let's do one more example before we get to the final version of this project again. With this slide, if you go back to the storyboard, remember I had two different poses of Janet here. And there's one where she hears what Dave is asking her and she gets a little angry and upset. This is a single slide, but I created two images of this so that you could see what's happening on slides. So again, this could be a thumbnail sketch or whatever, but I stole these from the actual completed project to save time. So in this case here, I'm going to use the assets that are already in the library instead of searching for them. But you would search for them one by one. So in this case here, we're going to start off with a picture of Dave. So we'll just kind of scroll through our images here and find that image of Dave sitting in his chair. And Dave is actually Stephen in this case. And I'm just going to place him on the slide and resize him so that he's appropriately sized for this scenario. When you bring an image like this in, whether it's from the asset store or from the library store, the default is probably 3 seconds. Here's a keyboard shortcut that's helpful. Control E will extend Dave's appearance for the rest of the slide, so you don't have to worry about him disappearing after 3 seconds. So next we need a picture of Janet looking relatively calm and happy. So we'll see an image of her, like let's say it's this one here. I'm not sure which one it is, but you could use the storyboard as an example here. So we're going to bring her over here and resize the image so that she's, in fact, this is a good opportunity to use the built-in function of fit to stage. So now we see her fitting within the slide. That works well. Now I'm not going to use Control E in this case. She's a little tall compared to Dave here. So let's bring her down a notch. So she's come in to check with Dave. Hey, you know, are you all set for tomorrow? At some point on the slide, now let's listen to the slide here.
Josie and Dave have been preparing for a presentation with management. She stops by Dave's desk on her way out of the office to ensure he's ready for tomorrow. Dave asks if she could stay late.
Okay, so as soon as we hear Dave asks that she should stay late, that's when the appearance of Josie should change, because she's not the happy-go-lucky person she was a few moments ago. So I'm extending the appearance of the first image of Josie to, in this case, 12 seconds. Now, I also want to add a fade effect. I want her to transition into the new image of Josie. So I'm going to use a fade out only. So she'll appear right at the beginning of the slide and she'll fade out at the end there. And that should be good to go. Now, at the half-second mark before she disappears, I'm going to go find the image of Josie where she's very unhappy with Dave here. And I like that one there. That's a good one here. Like, what the hell, Dave? So let's do the same thing again. Let's fit to stage so she's the right size or close to it. And let's actually just resize her so that she kind of matches the other version of herself. And we'll just place her over top. And this is where maybe zooming in might be particularly helpful here. We'll just make sure that, you know, I usually try to line up the shoulders or the feet sometimes. So let's take a look overall. I think she's maybe... Hold down your shift key when you resize so that you don't distort the image. So I think we're pretty good there. And you can see that there is an overlap. We're going to have the upset version of Josie or Janet, and I will extend that for the rest of the slide. And in the timing panel, we will have a fade in to counteract the fade out of the first image. So if I just reset this back to best fit here, and we press stop to go back to the beginning of the timeline, press play, we can see what this looks like.
Dave have been preparing for a presentation with management. She stops by Dave's desk on her way out of the office to ensure he's ready for tomorrow. Dave asks if she could stay late and help him with some extra
Yeah.
slides for the presentation.
So Dave asks if she should stay late. Boom. There you get the reaction that that makes sense in this particular case. And again, you just repeat that process until you've completed all of the aspects of your storyboard. I've got objects to represent the management people with their backs to us, but they're watching Dave and Janet present their, uh, their presentation. And of course, in the library file, again, for those who have access to that, you'll be able to see those. But again, anyone could produce this. These are all freely available resources. And this is sort of my workflow. So hopefully that has provided you a really nice overview of how you can build your own scenario-based training. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to switch back to webcam view now, if I can find where I'm at here. There we are. Um, yeah, so I mean, sometimes the access to the eLearning Brothers. I see Susanna is just saying, I don't seem to have access to the eLearning Brother images. Do you know why? I'm able to download other images when I select the Discover tab. They should be there. It's part of Adobe's agreement with them to provide access to these files. So my advice would be, and I've had this problem myself at various times. It could be you're behind a firewall. It could be behind your like a VPN access. Somehow you're not getting access to what is otherwise the public internet, maybe because you're with a corporate situation. Here's my advice: send an email to Captivate Help, all one word, at adobe.com. Tell them the problem you're having. I'm trying to access the additional characters from the asset store and I'm seeing a blank page, or I'm not able to access these files, or I click on download but I don't get that pop-up message indicating that it's completed. There's a bunch of different things that can happen here. And it's kind of Adobe's responsibility to take care of that, but I understand why it doesn't always happen, because of course they're dealing with a third-party solution here. But send that email off, captivatehelp@adobe.com, and they should be able to help you out as well. So any other questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'll stick around long enough to to answer any additional questions. But that's it for the formal portion. This is really what I presented at the Adobe Learning Summit. Again, if you're a free downloads member of my YouTube channel or higher, you can access these files. I point out that you don't have to be a free downloads member forever. You can be a free downloads member and access not only these files, but many other project files that I've made available from a lot of my videos over the years. You go to the community tab once you become a member, scroll down, everything I've shared with you will be found there. You may have to go back a ways to get the older stuff, but it's all there as well. If you're a premium member, you not only get access to to the stuff I'm talking about today, but there will also be a series of longer form videos where I teach an entire class on how to do various different projects. Some of these are an hour and a half, and many of them come with project files as well. So thanks everyone for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and look forward to the next live stream that I do. I'm already thinking of some ideas. I'll probably be sharing the same material that I'm covering at DevLearn. I'm going to be at DevLearn on the 26th is my session, but DevLearn is from the 25th to the 28th, if I'm not mistaken, of October 2022 in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Mirage Hotel. Go to devlearn.com if you haven't registered. It's a really great opportunity not only to learn from other people in this industry, but to share ideas with your peers, meet other people in the industry that you can network with, and find some really great business opportunities with one another. I'll be there. If you see me, if you're planning on going to DevLearn, don't be shy. Come over and say hi and let me know that you watch my YouTube channel. I'm always happy to meet someone who views my YouTube videos, because right now it's just a blank wall and I don't really get a chance to meet you in person. So I'm always happy to hear from people who are following me on YouTube. So that's great. I'm going to let everyone go now. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.
If you thought this video was helpful, please like and share it with your colleagues. If you need help with Adobe Captivate, hire Paul for one-on-one instruction. Paul's goal is to provide lessons based on your specific needs. Visit his website at captivateteacher.com and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel.